guys, what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. I'm back here at Wesley Chapel Toyota, and guess what? I want to talk a little bit about what's happening in the mid-size sedan category, and I want to do it with this Toyota Camry XSE trim. But before we dive into this, let's get to the heart of this whole discussion. There's some new players that are in the mid-size car segment at this price point that are really bringing a lot of style, a lot of technology, and definitely a lot of performance. Now, when you look at those players, the Hyundai Sonata N-Line, the new Kia K5 GT, of course, you have the ones that have already been around the block, the Honda Accord, the Mazda 6. Out of all those vehicles, including this Camry that I mentioned, there's only one where you could get a V6, naturally aspirated power. The rest of the power plants are all gonna be, when it comes to at least the performance side of things, a turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine. So this Camry, being the last of the mid-size sedans, and especially being an XSE trim, the XSE trim is that sport trim, is this still the way to go if you want that sport mid-size sedan, or should you go one of the other directions? And what I really want to wrap our minds around is one of the new players, that Kia K5 GT with its inline 4 turbocharged engine and very unique styling. So let's go ahead, let's dive into this 2020 Toyota Camry XSE and find out, should you be going this route for that sporty sensation and four-door practicality? Right off the bat, with 2020, this was the last year before some changes were made for 2021. Now, the great news is if you're comparing a 2020 and a 2021 Camry, the changes are not huge, but I'm gonna go over some of them real quick. Now, for 2020, you can see the headlight housing. The new style has more of a blacked out smoky appearance. You're still gonna get your LED headlights, your LED daytime running lamps, and of course, you're still gonna get on the XSE trim, whether it's this 2020 or 2021, the massive fake vents up front. I wish that they could have at least made this an air curtain, so I am gonna zonk those, or put some LED fog lamps. I think that would have looked really great, especially on the 2020 model with the bright silver, brings some of that brightness to the lower corner. Now, on the Kia K5 GT, you are getting that newer style with the heartbeat daytime running lamp. And I'll put, if you haven't seen my K5 GT review, it's one of the few on YouTube, I'll put the link at the end of this review. Now, as we come across the center section, most of this is gonna remain the same on a 2021. So you're gonna get this almost like a metallic gloss black grille area. You do have functionality up top, in the center, and down below, which is really nice. You do have a forward-facing camera. And on the XSE trim, you are getting this bright metallic silver along the lower lip. Obviously, beauty is gonna fall on the eyes of the beholder. I'm thinking overall, Kia K5 GT, like I said, looks a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more sporty, but I know there's still a large fan base for these Camrys, especially the XSE trim. Now, when we get up onto the hood, what I do love is the way they kind of wrapped all the styling around the Toyota badges. You take your body lines off the front fascia onto the hood, and then they kind of just V off and disappear. The only other lines you have are gonna be the rises on each side of the hood that go right into that A-pillar. So that is super clean styling. And what I do like about this generation of the Camry is they brought more aggression to it. If you look at the previous generation or ones before it, they almost look like refrigerators. Like you took a refrigerator, you put it horizontal and you put 4 wheels on it. That's what they look like, but not this one. When you come around the bend, what are we working with? Wheel and tire setup. So on the Kia K5 GT, you are gonna get 19-inch wheels. On this Toyota Camry XSE with the V6, you're also gonna get a 19-inch wheel. So machine aluminum, gloss black, it's a good looking wheel. Multi-spoke, just for me, I like what the Kia K5 GT is bringing, but still very good looking wheel. It's nice to have a 19-inch wheel, and the way that they have just the right amount of gap between the top of the tire inside the fender to where it's not too low. Now, remember, there is a Camry TRD, which, to be honest with you, that would be the direction. If I was gonna get a Camry, all day go Camry TRD. It brings so much value for your hard-earned money. But on the XSE, even though it is a sporty trim, you are gonna get some suspension retuning. If you go the TRD route, you actually get some lowering springs to get rid of some of that gap. So just a little advice from me to you. But as we go down the side, you do have, of course, your color matched mirror caps, a little bit of silver chrome finish on those mirror caps. Of course, you have your LED turn signals. And then I wish that on the sporty trims, they would just go with black trim on the top and bottom of the window frames here. It's got the bright, shiny metal work. And then that really just comes down to what your tastes are. But when I think of sport, I think of a lot of blacked out accenting pieces to kind of blend it all in. Now, I do like the lower side sill, especially the way that it flares out as you get towards the rear. Everything from the side, whether you get a 21 or a 20, looks exactly like this. And you know what? 2020, you're gonna get a better deal, which definitely might make this the one to go for by saving that money at the end of the day. Now, as we work our way to the back, you are getting a massive panoramic sunroof. So I really like that. You got a color matched shark fin antenna. Always have liked the way they kind of brought the trim and the body lines right into that rear pillar. And then as we get to the tail end of the business, you are going to get a very simple but tasteful trunklet spoiler. There are your taillight housings with the LED brake lights. And then I think my favorite part of the back of the Camry is you have this simple rear diffuser, but the quad tip exhaust. Now the great news is if you're comparing this to a K5 GT, you are getting the same style quad tip exhaust, but I love the way they stagger the tips. And somebody had asked, and I'm gonna look now, both of these are functional. Now technically this is the main one, but this is not blocked off. So the second one is not blocked off, but you do have a main opening, and then this one also has flow that comes out the rear. So that was, we had a subscriber actually ask that on a previous review. I just wanted to certify that. So we're good to go. But why don't we go ahead, let's pop the hood and see that V6 powering our XSE Camry. All right, guys, we got the hood pop. Now, what's interesting on the 2020 is that you still have hydraulic hood struts. On 2021s, they're using prop rods. So kind of interesting how they switch, but you do have the hydraulic hood struts. Not a sexy engine cover, but this car is not about the engine cover. What it's about is underneath. And as it says right there, smack dab in the center, we have naturally aspirated V6 power. So you're looking at 301 horsepower, 267 pound-feet of torque. It is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission, 0 to 60 in about 5.8 seconds. MPGs, 22 in the city, 32 on the highway, and the car weighs around 3,572 pounds. Now, when you're comparing that to, say, the Kia K5 GT or even the Hyundai Sonata N-Line, you're looking at 290 horsepower. So out of all the players, whether it's Honda, Mazda, Hyundai, Kia, this one has the most power, and it's naturally aspirated. But why don't we go ahead, let's fire it up and hear if it makes any sounds. All right, guys, we're inside this 2020 Toyota Camry XSE with the V6. I know you're saying, well, Joe, for me, it comes down to price, and that's always going to be important. So how much is this Camry? Because I've seen your other reviews. I've been writing things down in my journal, keeping a little diary at night before I go to bed. What midsize sedan am I going to buy that's sporty? How much is this one? MSRP, the way that this one is optioned, is $39,000. Let's see what you get for your money to the door panel. So you are going to get a nice color breakup here. So you have soft black material, then you got a gray, and then you have a lighter, like off-white, light gray on the armrests. Armrests are actually soft, flat black material around the switchgear. Door pocket, those are going to be a challenge. One bottle of Yoo-Hoo and maybe one full-size jelly donut from Dunkin' Donuts. That's about it. I wouldn't get powder though on the jelly donut. You're gonna make a mess in here. Now when you get to the dash, we do have the optional JBL sound system, soft touch. You can see this beautiful trim that they have in the XSE. I'm actually digging it. Soft touch material with the stitching. Now when you get to the center stack here, it's funny because after doing a review of a 2021 Camry, the XSE with the 4-cylinder, I actually kind of like this setup better. Now, the new infotainment system in a 2021 is 9-inch, but this 8-inch is integrated much cleaner than that new 9-inch system. You are going to get Apple CarPlay and all those goodies. Of course, you're going to have the ability to just about do anything that you need very easily. So it's a system that's easy to use. I'm just not the greatest fan of these silver buttons that they have. And you do have that CD player, which is a nice touch, especially if you're going to rock out to, maybe Pat Benatar, maybe you're going to go run DMC. There's a lot of different directions you could go with your Camry XSE. Now, you do have your start-stop button conveniently placed over here, which is nice. And let me throw it into reverse so we can see the backup cameras on the grainy side, but the good news is you do have 360 in this car, and you have the ability to go all different angles and how you want to arrange it with the screen. So it's nice that it uses all 8 inches of display, and you have the trajectory. Put it back in the park, you do have dual climate control, which is wonderful. And then as we drop down, I'm actually going to get the shifter out of the way. You have wireless charging, and I like the way it's right on top. And then of course you are going to have a 12 volt and a USB, easy to access. And then watch this is my favorite part. This is actually a lid. So you could have your phone charging, and then you could easily put 3 Twinkies in here, not squeezing any cream anywhere while your phone is charging. That's smart engineering from Toyota. You do have your 2 cup holders. This is going to control that 8-speed automatic. You have your 3 buttons, Eco, Normal, and Sport. And then your key fob. It says Camry on it. It reminds you what car you're driving. The only thing is it's really, I mean, it's light, which is good news. It's not going to pull your pants down, especially if you don't wear a belt. But the bad news is it just, I don't know, it feels a little cheap. That's just, from one car guy to another, just feels a little on the cheap side, especially for $39,000. If you look at the key fob on a Kia K5, it's pretty sexy, I have to admit. Great news, we have heated seats and ventilated seats. And I like the way they kind of integrated all into one little switch setup here. Semi-soft to a little bit softer in the center on the armrest. We open up that bad boy. You can literally drop a box of Yodels in there, and you have 2 USBs. So they got you covered there. And then the seats. Let me get this material out of the way. They have Scotch Guard on them, so you know you're going to be able to keep them clean, but not the sportiest looking seat. I have to be honest. I don't know if it's the color or the way the perforated design is, but the great news is they're super comfortable. And if you notice, you do have electric assist for the passenger and the driver, which is a nice touch. On top of that, like I pointed out, you do have your panoramic sunroof, which is a great size, all the way back for everybody. And then you do have an auto dimming mirror. The only challenge is it's not frameless. But remember, this is a 2020, so one thing to take into consideration, and you can easily close this. Plenty of headroom, which is great. But why don't you come over to the business end? I want to show you behind the wheel of this Camry XSE. All right, guys, business time behind the wheel of our Camry XSE. You can see the seat controls, easy to get to. And like I said, don't worry, between 2020 and 2021, the only major change really to the interior is the infotainment system. Same exact steering wheel. I wish Toyota would just bring a little bit something more, at least for the sport, like change the horn button. Leave everything else the same, just change this horn button. It's a little boring and just kind of almost looks dated. So just one thing that I'm gonna zonk on the actual steering wheel. You do have paddles to go up and down that 8-speed. And what I love is look at how they bring the paddle all the way to near the edge. That is smart. It's so easy to get those paddles when you're going up and down the gearbox. And then the dash, I like it. Analog tach, analog speedometer, fuel gauge and coolant gauge, the backlit LED, and you have a 7-inch display, digital display in the center where you can scroll through a cornucopia of different information. Obviously, we're gonna have all the Toyota sensing technology to keep you safe. But overall, compared to the K5, that is much more in alignment. If you look at a Hyundai Sonata N-Line, it's got the full digital dash. But why don't we get to the back seat and see how much room we have in this Camry. All right, guys, backseat time in this Toyota Camry. And the great news is you're getting a ton of room. I mean, no matter which midsize you go with, they bring a ton of room, but the Camry really just accentuates the amount of usable space in here. Now, what I like is you're gonna get that wonderful leather style material all the way around, large pocket. And the great news is whether you're a lover or a fighter, they got you covered. You could put your nunchucks in here. You could put a dagger a Chinese star or two, or if you're a lover, put a couple stuffed animals in there. Hug onto your teddy bear at night while you're dreaming about driving your Camry XSE. I'm not gonna fault you for that. And then guess what? You do have rear AC, which is wonderful, and then bam, they got you covered connectivity-wise in the back with 2 USBs. And like I said, I'm 6 feet tall, even with the panoramic sunroof, plenty of room. Is there an armrest? You better bet your bottom dollar. Look at that bad boy. Soft as can be. 2 cup holders, which are wonderful. But why don't we get to the trunk, because I want to see how this V6 really drives. All right, guys, one big hot topic is always not only what's under the hood, but what's under the trunk. How much space? Obviously, mid-size sedans, many people think they're dying away, but the great news is there's plenty of brands that are gonna keep that whole ball rolling. You just hit the button, you lift it up, and a nice, large, wide opening. You're looking at over 15 cubic feet of space, which is great. And what's wonderful is that they do give you those handles that they engineer so that you could fold the seats down, and the seats do a nice 60-40 split. The other thing I always like to point out is how deep the cargo floor is, how low it is. So the great news about that is that you could get some taller objects. So you go to Costco, you hear the hoarding toilet paper again, you could go get yourself some big old packages of it and get it in here instead of having to strap it to your roof. Because if you strap it to your roof, everybody's gonna know that you're the hoarder. But why don't we go ahead, since we're talking about Costco, let's take a trip down to a local one in our Toyota Camry. All right, guys, we're in the Toyota Camry. Stay tuned, we will be bringing you more 2021s, I promise you that, but I could not pass up the opportunity to drive this V6 XSE and try to compare it to the Kia K5 GT. So we're gonna do an on throttle from a dead stop. I do have it in sport mode. Here we go, a little bit of throttle, on throttle. So a little bit of traction loss, but you know what? The traction control kicked in and actually cut it down to get us to accelerate. What's nice is you're having that naturally aspirated V6 power, linear torque delivery, and going through this little section of twisty turns, you could feel some of the work that they've done to the suspension to quote unquote sport tune it. Now, if you are like me and you want to carve corners like a Thanksgiving Day turkey, then you know what your choice needs to be. Your choice needs to be the Camry TRD. And at the price point, it's amazing. But let's go ahead, on throttle, here we go. So, like I'm saying, when it comes to vibration, because of the larger engine, the V6 over the 4-cylinder turbos, you're not getting a lot of vibration. You're getting a little bit deeper sound, of course, and it's super smooth. Also, this has a head-up display, which allows you to get that extra information that you need as well. But steering feel could have a little bit more. That's the one thing that when it comes to the Camry, even the TRD, I wish that it had just a little bit more steering feel, but you know what? The Kia K5 GT isn't perfect. I think the 2 mid-size sedans that do it the best when it comes to overall balance and feel is going to be the Honda Accord, and of course the 2-liter turbo, and the Mazda 6 with the turbocharged inline 4-cylinder. I think that really are the 2 examples that really bring driving engagement to a perfect level. But the good news is the seats are very comfortable in this Camry. The amount of room is wonderful. And like I was saying earlier, I'm actually digging more. Even though I don't love this setup, I never have, I actually like this more than the new 9-inch setup. Because remember, the 9-inch setup actually extends up past the dash a little bit, and I know how some people feel about that overall style and design. But going down the highway, there's a little bit of wind noise, but I think if you look across the board, you're gonna be getting some wind noise no matter which vehicle that you get in. I think this has just a tad more than the Accord, but the Sonata and the K5 actually have more wind noise than this Camry. Visibility is great. I love the dash layout, especially like I said, with those red needles on the instrumentation. And the paddles, to get to the paddles, they're real easy to do. Now what I'm gonna do is, we're gonna make a U-turn here. I'm gonna put it in manual shift mode. And to do that, you just take the shifter, push it over to the driver's side, and then you could use those paddles. There is a gear indicator right at the bottom of the instrumentation, that digital display. Let's make the U-turn together, and then we're gonna get on throttle and see how we do. I'm actually gonna shut off the traction control and see how we do on acceleration here. So I'm gonna make a bigger U-turn just so I could have some room to go on throttle real quick. But at a dead stop, on throttle. So you can hear, you're just spinning. But you know what? When it comes to power delivery, nobody is doing it better than this Camry. Because, like I said, of the naturally aspirated power, you got a good balance of torque and horsepower, and the 8-speed automatic shifts very effectively, which is great. I'm actually digging all the different colors in this interior. It kind of breaks it up a little bit. Although the seats, they are comfortable, they're just not sexy looking. But I guess you gotta look at what you value more. Do you value the look more, or do you value more the comfort? The seats in the Kia K5 GT, or pretty much all the other vehicles I mentioned, do look better than the seats in this Camry. But you do have full power assist for both the passenger and the driver. Let's go ahead from a slow roll here. First gear, on throttle, here we go. Telling you, the shifts are really, really smooth, which is nice. Brakes feel good. I just, Camry TRD. That's what I'm saying. And I think if I'm comparing the K5 GT to the Camry TRD, I don't know. I think I might still go K5 GT, to be honest with you. But we'll bring more of those kind of comparisons that you guys love in the next upcoming months as these models hit the different dealerships that we work with. But still, composed. A little bit extra body roll than what you're gonna find in the GT, the K5 GT, or a Camry TRD, but that's to be expected. But there definitely is some different suspension tuning in this Camry XSE compared to other trims. But I do like the steering wheel, the thickness of it, the leather that they use is nice quality. Getting to everything is really easy. And you got plenty of room in the back seat for the passengers, and you got the reliability. But hopefully this gave you a nice overall feel as I talked through some of the thoughts between this and the competition, especially the K5 GT. We're gonna get back to Wesley Chapel Toyota and wrap this one up, so I'll see you in a split second. All right, guys, been another great day here at Wesley Chapel Toyota. I definitely gotta thank Ness, Scooter, and the whole crew here getting us access to this Toyota Camry XSE. Even though it was a 2020, still having that same great V6, same great amount of horsepower. I don't know. I think it's a tough decision. If it was my money, I would be going the Kia K5 GT route, but there's something just so undeniable about that linear torque delivery from a V6. And then at the end of the day, who are we fooling? This is a Toyota, so you're gonna get that great reliability. But if you wanna keep seeing mid-size sports sedans, whether they're expensive, this price point, or even less expensive, leave a comment in the comment section. If you're new and you're on your way out, hit that subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile coming back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Radius Rides family. If you want to help us keep making great content just for you in the channel, click the link in the description, get yourself some Radius Rides merch. Got to give it up to the queen of the camera. She's out here like a champ, getting all the angles. Show her some love in the comment section. Thank you, Lori, for all your hard work. And just like always, guys, I'll see you on the next ride.